watching World News Program with me, your host, Miriam Zian. To the headlines. President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, congratulates Algerians on the advent of the holy fasting month of Ramadan, highlights efforts to ensure product availability and to combat speculation. Coming up, Algeria launches programs to promote stability and development in the Sahel-Saharan region. President Tebboune and his Tunisian counterpart affirm strong bilateral ties, while Algeria and Venezuela highlight parliamentary diplomacy as an effective tool for intergovernmental consultation. In Libya, the UN accuses the House of Representatives and High Council of State of failing to implement the political roadmap. UN Special Representative Tete warns of a serious economic turning point, while Dbeiba announces a new government and reiterates commitment to comprehensive elections. Geneva negotiations on a settlement between Moscow and Kiev conclude amid high tension. President Zelensky describes the talks as difficult, accuses Moscow of obstruction, and notes divergent positions on key issues, while the Kremlin says it is too early to assess results. Hello and welcome to the details of your nightly news. And first, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, congratulated the Algerian people on the advent of the holy month of Ramadan. In his message, President Tebboune extended his heartfelt congratulations and best wishes to all Algerians, both at home and abroad, as well as to the Palestinian people, praying to Almighty Allah to make this month one of goodness, blessings, and solidarity.
أيتها المواطنات، أيها المواطنون، نحمد الله تعالى أن هل علينا شهر رمضان المبارك بنفحاته الربانية. فبهذه المناسبة يسعدني أن أتوجه إلى كل الجزائريات والجزائريين بأصدق التهاني وأطيب التبريكات، سائلا المولى عز وجل أن يجعله شهر خير وبركات وتضامن. كما لا يفوتني ونحن على أعتاب شهر الرحمة والمغفرة أن أهنئ أبناء جاليتنا في الخارج بهذه المناسبة، دون أن ننسى أشقاءنا في فلسطين الجريحة، راجين الله عز وجل أن يخفف من معاناتهم.
The President of the Republic also commended efforts to spare Algeria from fluctuations by ensuring products availability and fight all forms of speculation and waste. Let's have a listen.
كما أنوه بكل المجهودات التي جعلت بلادنا في منأى عن كل التقلبات من خلال توفير كل ما يحتاجه المواطن من منتوجات، مع تضافر جهودنا بالطبع جميعا للحفاظ على هذه الوفرة وتجنب كل أشكال المضاربة والتبذير.
Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune held a phone call with his Tunisian counterpart, Mr. Kais Said, during which he extended his congratulations on the occasion of the holy month, wishing him and the Tunisian people progress and prosperity. According to a statement from the Algerian presidency, President Said reciprocated the Ramadan greetings, wishing President Tebboune and the Algerian people goodness and peace. The two leaders also discussed the strong fraternal bilateral relations between their countries. Ahmed Attaf, Algeria's Minister of State and Minister of Foreign Affairs, presided over the National Martyrs' Day commemoration on February 18, accompanied by the ministry's Secretary General Lounès Maghraman. According to a Foreign Ministry statement, observing Martyrs' Day renews the pledge to those who sacrificed for Algeria and reaffirms commitment to safeguarding national sovereignty and defending it by all legitimate means. Algeria aims to carry nearly 10 million passengers this year while expanding its route network, targeting promising international markets. At its 2026 annual summit, the airline set a goal of exceeding 9.8 million passengers, about 1 million more than last year, and described 2025 as a turning point marked by the launch of a domestic subsidiary and the delivery of new aircraft to strengthen its fleet. Brahim Boughali, Speaker of Algeria's National People's Assembly, highlighted parliamentary diplomacy as a key tool to strengthen consultation between Algeria and Venezuela during a meeting with Venezuela's ambassador Imad Saab. He also stressed the role of Parliament in addressing issues of mutual interest and called for enhanced economic cooperation between the two countries. Algeria has launched initiatives in the Sahel-Saharan region linking security and development through strategic projects to build partnerships and strengthen its role in regional stability. Marwa Belaiwar has more details.
At a pivotal moment, Sahel nations are turning to Algeria as a trusted neighbor, offering a model that seeks supports, not domination. Algeria's distinctive approach, rooted in partnership and regional solidarity, aims at one outcome: lasting peace, stability, and sustainable development, in contrast to other limited initiatives driven by narrow interests. That strategic shift has taken shape through high-level visits between Algeria and the countries of the region, against the backdrop of rising geopolitical tensions. Through cross-border infrastructure projects and regional development approaches, Algeria is helping redefine the contours of a more stable and integrated Sahel. During his recent visit, and in a move linking the Sahel to the Mediterranean, Niger's President, General Abdurrahman Tiani, formalized progress on the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline across Niger's territory. Cooperation also expanded to border security, vocational and military training, and the construction of health and education facilities, part of a comprehensive partnership framework. Momentum extended beyond immediate neighbors. Chadian President Mohamed Idriss Déby's landmark visit to Algeria, followed by intensive diplomatic engagement, led to strategic agreements in hydrocarbons, cement production, and technological support in renewable energy. Under its development diplomacy and South-South cooperation strategy, Algeria also reaffirmed support for Burkina Faso through new cooperation protocols in hydrocarbons, mining, and in electricity during a high-level ministerial visit, without forgetting the major projects sealed with neighboring Mauritania, such as the Tindouf-Zouirat Road, the establishment of a free trade zone, and new border crossings are reshaping economic connectivity. Through a comprehensive development path deep into Africa, Algeria advances a principle of partnership, building capacity rather than dominance, standing firm against terrorism and poverty. Backed by experience and strategic consistency, Algeria is helping shape a new Sahel anchored in sovereignty, peace, and stability.
Now we move on to news in occupied Palestine. Extremist settlers stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque from the Al-Maghariba Gate early Wednesday morning, the first day of Ramadan, in Palestine under the protection of Zionist occupation forces. Local Palestinian sources cited the media reported that dozens of settlers entered the mosque in groups, performing provocative songs, dances, and Talmudic rituals in its courtyards, amid strict measures imposed by the occupation to control the entry of worshippers and secure the raid. Zionist occupation forces launched wide-scale raids and arrests in various areas of the occupied West Bank. The official Palestinian news agency Wafa reported Wednesday that the occupation forces arrested 14 Palestinians in the Al-Khalil Governorate and 1 Palestinian each in the towns of Durra, Zahiriya, and the northern Jordan Valley. The same source added that the occupation forces stormed occupied Al-Quds in Ain al-Louza neighborhood in Silwan and arrested a young Palestinian south of Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Al-Quds International Foundation issued an urgent appeal calling for wide-scale action to save the residents of Al-Bustan neighborhood in Silwan, south of Al-Aqsa Mosque, from the occupation's attempts to forcibly evict them from their land. In a statement released Wednesday, the foundation warned that allowing the eviction of Al-Bustan would constitute a form of Judaization of central Al-Quds, no less dangerous than the eviction of the Maghariba gate. It added that it would set a dangerous precedent, encouraging the Zionist occupation to repeat forced evictions in other neighborhoods of occupied Al-Quds, calling for a popular, legal, and media campaign in response. "85 countries at the United Nations condemned the Israeli entity yesterday, Tuesday, for adopting new measures aimed at expanding its illegal presence in the occupied West Bank. In a joint statement read by Palestine's permanent representative to the UN, Riyad Mansour, at the UN headquarters, the countries, including China and Russia, as well as numerous organizations, strongly opposed any form of annexation of Palestinian lands, stressing the need for the occupation to immediately withdraw, as these measures violate international law.
We strongly condemn unilateral Israeli decisions and measures aimed at expanding Israelis' unlawful presence in the West Bank. Such decisions are contrary to Israel's obligations under international law and must be immediately reversed. We underline in this regard our strong opposition to any form of annexation. We reiterate our rejection of all measures aimed at altering the demographic composition, character, and status of the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967, including East Jerusalem.
A Palestinian was martyred by Israeli occupation fire Wednesday morning in the city of Khan Yunis, south of the Gaza Strip, coinciding with the occupation's airstrikes, gunfire, and artillery shelling in the northern and southern parts of the Strip. Local Palestinian sources cited the media reported that occupation forces fired their weapons at civilians in the Beni Suhaila area east of Khan Yunis, resulting in the death of a Palestinian. This occurred alongside a series of airstrikes on Gaza City and artillery shelling and gunfire, targeting areas in eastern Khan Yunis as well. Palestinians in Gaza marked Ramadan for the third time, consecutively amid war's devastation, with nearly 2 million displaced people lacking basic necessities. Worshippers returned to the heavily damaged Great Omari Mosque, one of Gaza's oldest and Palestine's third largest, despite its destruction. Osama Ayadi's report.
For the third year in a row, the month of Ramadan arrives in the Gaza Strip unlike its usual state, after more than 2 years of a genocidal war that changed the face of the Strip, altered the lives of inhabitants and burdened their memories with rubble and loss. Despite all these unbearable conditions, Gazans find themselves unwilling to surrender the most blessed month to the ashes of the Zionist war, especially since it has come this time under what is supposed to be a ceasefire. In Khan Yunis, in the southern Gaza Strip, Palestinian refugees are busy crafting homemade decorations for the Holy Mosque, transforming simple used cans or any left objects into brightly colored Ramadan lanterns to bring joy for the children and live a glimpse of happiness as any normal human being.
Before the war, we used to live Ramadan vibes. Be happy, hang decorations, hang lanterns. We used to live and make the children happy. Now, because of the war, the siege and the lack of real lanterns with which we can bring happiness and decorations are unavailable. I opted for the idea of using cola cans, which are supposed to be drunk and thrown away in the rubbish.
Taraweeh prayers are among the most prominent features of the month of fasting, transforming the nights of Gaza into a majestic scene of worship, with mosque squares and streets overflowing with worshippers. The Great Omari Mosque, one of the city's oldest and most important landmarks, suffered extensive damage, just like any other civilian building in the Strip, with most of its structure destroyed. However, it hosted the first Taraweeh prayers of the year, after one of its halls was cleaned and prepared with whatever resources were available.
This mosque, the majority of people in the Gaza Strip used to come to this mosque during Ramadan. It would be filled with worshippers. Thousands of worshippers would come here to perform these rituals of worship. But now, what are they supposed to pray? It's all rubble and destruction.
According to the Ministry of Religious Affairs in Gaza City, approximately 430 prayer areas have been refurbished with basic materials in an effort to preserve the Taraweeh prayers despite the destruction, after the occupation forces completely destroyed 835 mosques and partially damaged 180 others. This is how Gazans are welcoming their third Ramadan under the shadow of war and its aftermath, amidst the rubble of mosques, displacement tents, and stagnant markets. Yet the people of Gaza insist on redefining the situation with their will to live triumphs over the Zionist war machine and its annihilation.
In other news, the National Union of Sahrawi Women reaffirmed the commitment of Sahrawi mothers to continue the struggle for self-determination and independence. On Sahrawi Mother's Day, February 18, the Union highlighted women's central role in liberation and nation building alongside men under the Polisario Front. The UN Secretary General Special Representative and head of the UN support mission in Libya, Hannah Tete, accused Libya's House of Representatives and High Council of State of failing to fulfill their commitments to the roadmap launched by the mission last August. In her regular briefing to the UN Security Council, Tete announced the mission's plan to assign a small team to resolve the two key steps of the roadmap on which the councils failed to reach agreement, noting that the UN has an opportunity to use existing Libyan agreements to break the deadlock.
There has been no meaningful progress between the House of Representatives and the High Council of State in completing the first two steps of the roadmap, despite UNSMIL's efforts. And subsequent unilateral actions were taken first by the House of Representatives and then by the High Council of State, both of which complicated the situation further and which now could threaten the unity of the High National Elections Commission. I have conducted preliminary talks with key political actors on a two-step approach, forming a small group to resolve these two roadmap milestones critical for elections. Should this group fail to agree, a broader convening will be necessary to take forward the implementation of the roadmap. We have the opportunity to use the tools within the existing Libyan political agreements to break this protracted impasse, and we would appreciate the support of the Council to enable us to move forward.
The head of the UN support mission in Libya confirmed that the circumstances surrounding the death of Saif al-Islam Muammar Gaddafi remain unclear, urging Libyan authorities to conduct a transparent and thorough investigation into his assassination.
Targeted killings also continue. On the 3rd of February, Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, who was subject to an ICC arrest warrant, was killed in this Sintan area under unclear circumstances. It has been announced that an investigation will take place, and we call for a swift and transparent investigation process to ensure that the perpetrators are held accountable.
So in Libya, Prime Minister of the Government of National Unity Abdul Hamid Dbeiba announced that he will reveal details of an upcoming cabinet reshuffle at the next Council of Ministers meeting. In a speech marking the 15th anniversary of the February 17 revolution, Dbeiba said the reshuffle aims to improve government performance and fill gaps in certain ministries, noting that the government was formed amid complex political and security challenges. He emphasized that the current stage requires new appointments to address vacancies and inject fresh leadership.
كلكم تعرفوا الظروف اللي تشكلت فيها الحكومة.
You all know the circumstances under which the government was formed, how ministers were selected, and the political and security conditions we were facing at the time, as well as the challenges we have gone through over the past period. All of these factors have made it imperative today to carry out a cabinet reshuffle. The primary objective of this reshuffle is to address the shortfall in certain vacant portfolios. We also aim to inject new blood that can contribute to achieving this vision. This comes in appreciation and respect for all the efforts made by our colleagues in the Council of Ministers during the past period.
The second day of negotiations in Geneva between Moscow, Kiev and Washington aimed at reaching a solution to the war in Ukraine concluded Wednesday. The two sides confirmed. French news agency sources from Moscow and Kiev reported the end of the second day of talks, while Russian state media quoted chief negotiator Vladimir Medinsky saying new discussions are planned in the near future. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky described the US-mediated talks with Russia in Geneva as difficult. In a social media post, he accused the Russian delegation of trying to prolong the negotiations and obstruct a final agreement.
Right now, everyone is awaiting the continuation of the trilateral meetings. Our delegation is already in Geneva and preparing for the negotiations. Russia cannot resist the temptation of the last days of winter cold and wants to inflict painful blows on Ukrainians. The more of this evil that comes from Russia, the harder it will be for everyone to reach any agreements with them. Partners must understand this. First and foremost, this concerns the United States.
The head of the Russian delegation in the Geneva talks, Vladimir Medinsky, described the second round of negotiations on a Ukraine settlement as difficult but serious. Speaking at the close of the 2-hour session on the second day, he said the talks were practical in nature. Russian presidential spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said it is too early to assess the outcomes of the Geneva talks. He added Wednesday that President Putin receives direct reports during the discussions.
Today, trilateral Russia-Ukraine-US negotiations will continue in Geneva. Our delegation is here. I don't think we should expect any news today, because as you know, the talks are scheduled to continue tomorrow. There are no plans to make any statements. Of course, everything would be held behind closed doors.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in his evening address expressed readiness to move quickly toward a peace agreement. However, he questioned Russia's seriousness, pointing out that missile strikes continue alongside diplomacy. He stressed that the Ukrainian negotiating team should raise these attacks with the US, which has suggested a halt to hostilities for both sides. At least 61 Sudanese have been killed and dozens injured as clashes intensified between the Sudanese army and the rapid support forces across North and West Kordofan over the past 3 days. Local media sources reported Wednesday that a series of airstrikes targeted civilian sites, killing 61 civilians, 30 in the city of Atsunut in West Kordofan and 31 in a market in Safia, Sudan's North Kordofan. The United Nations confirmed the delivery of humanitarian aid to support more than 130,000 people in the cities of Deleng and Kadugli in South Kordofan, marking the first major aid operation to the region in 3 months. UN agencies in Sudan said Wednesday that ensuring safe and regular humanitarian access is urgent to prevent further deterioration of conditions in South Kordofan. They called on all parties to respect international humanitarian law and facilitate unhindered aid delivery to all civilians in need. The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi confirmed Wednesday that Tehran is preparing a draft framework for upcoming talks with Washington during a phone call with the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency. Araghchi said that the focus is on developing an initial coherent draft framework to advance future negotiations following the conclusion of a second round of talks with the US. The end of our program. Thank you for watching and have a great night.